The Fanboy, episode 136. Hi, everybody. Mario Francisco Robles and Brett Thomas Miro here with you today for episode 136 of the Fanboy Podcast. How's everybody doing out there? Brett, more specifically, how are you doing, sir?
Oh, man, I'm great. I'm ready to talk about stuff. Let's dance.
Let's dance. We're going to
dance the night away.
We're doing it? All right. So we're going to go straight into topics because you deserve nothing less. So, all right. So our first topic of the day, we're going to start things off as we should with a quick Superman on film update. Are you ready for this sterling, unbelievable update of the state of Superman in cinema, Brett?
Oh, I'm ready.
All right. There have been exactly zero developments in when it comes to the next Superman movie. And it's been that way now for close to a year. I think I'm going to start one of those like countdowns or days since. Remember how like there's the Hulk like days without incident and all that.
Yeah.
We're going to have to do like a days without Superman news because really I think like the last stuff was from March of last year when they were talking about Ta-Nehisi Coates and Abrams and all that stuff. And it's been radio silent ever since. But look, in lieu of having some juicy Superman movie news to lead with, I thought we could talk a little bit about where we're at right now in terms of getting on the on-ramp for a new Superman movie. Because that's one of the reasons I launched SupermanOnFilm.com. You know, it's one of these days soon. We're going to be on the on-ramp for a brand new movie. We're going to have a director and a release date, and there's going to be a lot to talk about. This is my optimism. It's going to happen soon. I swear. But since we are approaching an on-ramp, I hope. I was thinking recently about when Man of Steel was the next big thing that was on the horizon. You know, after all kinds of development hell, after Superman Returns almost gave us a sequel and then didn't, and then there were lots of little false starts here and there. Finally, after 6 years after Superman Returns came out, we finally started hearing things about this Man of Steel movie. And right now, I kind of want to just kind of compare where we're at because it's interesting. There are some similarities. There are some differences, and some of it, like, I'm not exactly sure how I feel about it. So, Brett, like, I keep talking about the fact that as much as I would love to see Henry Cavill back as Superman, and I think there's a way to do like a Man of Steel sequel that would really take him to the next level and be like, the big modern Superman classic of our times. As much as I'd like that, I would also love for a visionary director to step in and kind of do what Matt Reeves is doing with Batman, right? I've referenced that a bunch of times, but this week it dawned on me that that's actually impossible at this point. Like with the current way that things are lined up, they're already working on a Superman story without even hiring a director. So right now, like the similarities are, when Man of Steel was being produced, you had Christopher Nolan as like the mega producer. Him and his brother and David Goyer had all sort of worked out a story. And then they brought in Zack Snyder as a sort of hired gun and, now direct this thing that we would like to get made, right? And funny enough, that's where we are now with this new Superman movie, where you have Abrams as like in the Nolan position, as the Godfather, as the uber producer, Jaja Abrams that he is.
Jaja Abrams.
And we've got Ta-Nehisi Coates, an all-star writer, a very interesting writer, a well-known and respected writer. But right now we have a completely vacant director's chair. And it kind of made me feel a certain kind of way when I realized that. I'm like, wait a minute. So right now, the way things are set up, it's not really... We're not in a place where a huge Superman fan can just come in and be like, this is the universe. This is the world I want to build. This is the Superman story I've dreamt of telling my whole filmmaking career, And I don't know, I guess I'm curious what's your take on that? Like, do you think a movie's better when the director is kind of there from the inception of the project? Or do you think it's fine when they're just sort of a hired gun after the fact?
Sure. I mean, it depends on the director or auteur. Like you have your James Gunns who
Mhm.
have had pretty much control of his Guardians of the Galaxy films,
Yeah.
whereas a lot of the rest of the Marvel movies have really been basically write the script, find the guy that's going to be able to bring that script to life, or guy or gal, I should say. But yeah, I mean, sometimes I think with Superman in this case, I really like this approach because I think they know we got to nail a script down. We got to get an amazing, phenomenal story and a phenomenal script, and then we hunt and search for the guy that either brings us a pitch on how to bring that to life, or they find
Yeah.
the guy that they think is the one to bring that script to life versus trusting an auteur. I mean, I know Zack Snyder was not, I think, at least Man of Steel, I know he didn't write that one, right? But
Yeah.
he has had his hands in basically like the Justice League and Batman and Superman. I think he was very
Yeah.
heavily involved in the script where you got that kind of auteur approach. And, listen, we know how that went, despite how a lot of his fans feel. And even me, like, I still enjoyed all those movies. I didn't, like, hate them. So, but I think Warner seeing that, they want to get away from that approach. They said, we got to get this right this time, and we need to then find the guy that's going to bring it. And, there's a little caution with that too, because then you worry that then the studio is going to have a little bit extra to say at that point because they're kind of picking somebody. So I'm sure everyone kind of has nerves or leans all over in every direction.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. For me, I kind of go both ways on it. I kind of wish that someone would come in with that epic pitch who just, this is what they've been waiting to do. Like, it seems like Matt Reeves is just like,
right.
He's like a kid in a candy store when it comes to making his
Yeah.
Batman movie. So there's a part of me that would love to have a filmmaker like that. But at the same time, I tend to trust Abrams in this role that he's in. I like him better as the producer who puts the team together than I do like him as the director actually in the director's seat, if that makes any sense.
No, it does.
I think he's good at like putting together the right creative team and giving them the tools they need to go do what they got to do.
Yeah.
So I have to think that Abrams and Coates, if he hired Ta-Nehisi Coates, is because they do together have some sort of idea for the type of story they want to tell. And I guess the next step is that once they have that story nailed down, they're going to go find their director. And it's, I just hope they get someone who's up to the task. Like right now, my current fave, and I've mentioned this for a couple of years now, is I would love to see what Travis Knight does with Superman. Are you familiar with his work? He did Bumblebee. He
Okay.
did.
Yes. Yeah.
He did the animated Kubo and the Two Strings. He's got some interesting gifts when it comes to telling stories that have a lot of heart, but also have some commercial appeal. Like what he did with Bumblebee. Did you see that?
I actually didn't. I kind of the
Oh,
Transformers
God.
series after the second one, I was like, I'm over it.
Yeah, you're a huge embarrassing failure, but it's okay,
Hey.
Brett. But yeah, Travis Knight, I think, would have the right touch for a Superman movie. But in general, it's going to be very intriguing to see how they go with this. And also, if Coates ever turns in this script and sees what kind of story are we going to tell here? Is this going to be some sort of hard hitting, broken glass mirror look at America? Because Ta-Nehisi Coates seems to be sort of poised for that sort of stuff. But then again, he also wrote on Black Panther. So there's a lot of unknowns about this. But I guess it just recently struck me that here we are at the beginning of this Superman movie process, and there is not a visionary auteur sitting in the driver's seat. And I just kind of wanted to discuss that a little bit. But okay, so now we're going to shift on over to the other member of the world's finest. We're going to talk a little bit about Batman, because I know we were gushing about it last week about how everything we read and see about this movie just gets us more and more gets us more excited about it. And I know a couple of weeks ago there were some interesting headlines where Reeves was comparing him to Kurt Cobain and talking about how like he's not necessarily a playboy, but kind of a psycho weirdo guy. And Brett, why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, if I may, a lot of this also is coming out from a recent GQ interview that Pattinson did. So if you don't mind, I would like to read an interesting quote
Do it.
that I have here.
Yeah.
So talking, he's referring to, I guess, playing the dual identity of Bruce Wayne Batman and more Bruce Wayne in this particular. He said, quote, "I've definitely found a little interesting thread. He doesn't have a playboy persona at all, so he's kind of a weirdo as Bruce and a weirdo as Batman, and I kept thinking there's a more nihilistic slant to it. Because normally, in all the other movies, Bruce goes away, trains, and returns to Gotham believing in himself, thinking, I'm going to change things here. But in this, it's sort of implied that he's had a bit of a breakdown." So I think I kind of hinted at this last week too, but I do really like that approach because it gives the character a lot of room to grow. What's interesting is I feel like in some of like the origin stories, like Batman's trying to figure out like how to be Batman, and I feel like in this he knows how to be Batman already. He is Batman, and he needs to figure out how to be Bruce Wayne. You know what I mean? Like I feel like even Christian Bale, which had such a like Batman Begins had such like first half of the movie is just origin. You don't even see him in the suit until like halfway through the movie. But in that, I feel like he almost kind of had the Bruce Wayne thing like figured out right away. You know, I feel like he kind of just came right into it, and then it was good. And then he was learning how to be Batman. But yeah, so this is like, it is an interesting kind of switch on it. I really like what Reeves and him are going for, and maybe that's the benefit of the auteur view of it. But it's a really cool angle. Like you mentioned, the Kurt Cobain, like this like recluse, that is very well known, has like this fame to him.
The whole world knows who they are, but they just want to be hiding somewhere.
And also, like we said, like in the trailer, there is like hints that he's not necessarily living up to his family's philanthropy and continuing that at this point. He's very lost. So, and that's probably why we have this kind of little more wilder, violent Batman that seems to have like no regard for his own well-being at all. And it's scary and dangerous. And
he's walking right at people, shooting at them with machine guns.
Like just doesn't care. And it's a really cool way to go about this, especially at like this point in his career. He's like 2 years in or something like that. They said so. We're kind of past year one, but so he's got some experience under his belt. But
by the way,
this is something really special. It really is. It has all the makings of just a great character story, and with that runtime, everyone's all upset about. It's going to be the right thing. Trust me.
Yeah,
it was the right move. He's got a story to tell.
You mentioned something though about year one. This is just a quick, tiny tangent because I get pissed about this. Yeah. I wrote something about the Batman like 2-3 years ago. Just kind of the rumors I was hearing at the time about what type of story it was, and that there were a lot of comparisons being made to year one. And I remember I just mentioned that because now it's obvious. But at the time, it was just people were comparing it to year one. And that's all I said. And everyone lost their minds and said, it's not year one. They wouldn't do that again. Batman Begins was loosely based on year one, and you're out of your mind and your sources are wrong. And I got all this heat for that. And now everyone's seeing the trailers and Reeves is basically saying it in interviews. And I just want to go back 3 years and be like, all right, everybody. Okay, sorry. Yeah. I digress. But in terms of getting back to how this Bruce is going to be portrayed, I'm with you in that this is going to be the first time we see movies, in theory. I'm saying movies plural because it seems like he has a few stories he wants to tell. Sure. This is going to be the first time we see Batman movies that actually try to put you inside the mind of this vigilante. And that's something that came up early too, in early interviews when he was talking about what he sort of wanted to achieve here. He was talking a little bit about getting inside the mind, seeing his perspective, the psychology of this guy who dresses up like a giant bat and fights crime because of this trauma that he suffered. So it's going to definitely be a mind trip. It's going to be like probably the sickest, weird Batman story we've ever seen.
Well, it's certainly something they have explored in the comics. Like anyone who's been following the comics for years, this is like such a key part to the character.
Well, what I meant was, we haven't seen it on the big screen. Yeah.
But we haven't in film form. It really hasn't come across aside from like, hey, Michael Caine had and Jeremy Irons had some lines, kind of being like, you're really crazy. You're really crazy. That was the actual line, wasn't it? You're really crazy. But whatever. There's like throwaway lines with that, but now like we're really gonna see it, and it's I'm happy we're getting like a really, I want to say like original. It's definitely drawn from the comics, but it's just like a nice take and a nice angle to like, I guess, start this new
Yeah.
Possible trilogy, because I know they have other stories planned. They've mentioned
Yeah.
it, but they did the line, right? We're focusing on this one right now, but yeah, we do have plans for the future.
Yeah, of
It's like,
course.
yeah, basically, if this brings in money, Warner Brothers just goes, do more. So, yeah.
By the way, do you find it interesting? This is just like, to me, I don't know if this counts as trivia or what, but when Affleck was in charge of the Batman, when Affleck was going to be doing that, and he was working on a script with Jeff Johns that got a polish by, I think they said Chris Terrio. When back during that period, his apparent influences, the stuff that he was looking to, was David Fincher movies. It was being compared to The Game. And then Matt Reeves takes over, and he also is thinking about David Fincher movies, but he's thinking about like Zodiac and Seven. Right. And I think it's funny, like, why does everyone seem to think that David Fincher has the perfect Batman aesthetic? It's
maybe he does. Maybe he does.
I mean, listen, I've been saying forever David Fincher would be like my pie in the sky dream director for Batman. Just like for me, honestly, my pie in the sky dream director for Superman, who would never touch it, is Steven Spielberg. So, I have my pie in the sky. It ain't going to happen, people. And if Fincher did a Batman series, I'd be all for it. But then again, it looks like Reeves is going to kind of give us that. But either way, it seems like both Affleck and Reeves are like, this Fincher guy. There's something about his storytelling.
He's talented.
Yeah, Anyway, so now sticking within the world of Gotham and of Batman, there was a Suicide Squad movie that came out not last year, but 6 years ago. And you know what, Brett? People are still clamoring to see it. Yes, there's been some recent chatter again about the Ayer cut of Suicide Squad. And the big headline this week is that Will Smith, Deadshot himself from that film, Will Smith has made some comments in support of the movie, saying he would love to see it. Now, he also said that he loves both versions of that movie, the one that Ayer made and the one that they ended up with, which I don't know how anyone could love the theatrical cut, but he spoke in favor of, he's basically pointing out a lot of things were left on the cutting room floor.
Oh, left cutting room floor.
And shut up. And he would love to see the Ayer cut of Suicide Squad. So before I give my answer, I'm just curious, Brett, do you want to see the Ayer cut of Suicide Squad?
I'm over it. I'm over it. Listen, would it hurt anybody to release it? No. Would it just be like a nice little oddity, a curio kind of? That's basically what Justice League was. And listen, that was, and I enjoyed that much better than the theatrical cut. But first of all, Batman. Justice League, in my opinion, was still not as bad as Suicide Squad. I have very strong feelings on that one. I think it's maybe one of the worst movies I've ever seen. So much that I literally watched until the final battle. The final battle, which should be the thing you
with the raspberry people. Yeah.
And I just turned it off. I was like, I don't even care what happens. It was so for me. I mean, at least Justice League theatrical cut going to the Snyder cut, I was like, I could see that something better is going to come out of this. I don't know that what I'm going to get out of this. I'm sure it will be better, but I can't imagine it really turning the tables that much, in my opinion. So I want to move on. We have these new things. We're going to be getting a new, Aquaman and Wonder Woman that are, still from that previous era. We're getting our Flash that is kind of from that previous era. That's going to be kind of bridging the gap between the previous and the new. We have our new Batman. We're waiting on Superman, and then hopefully, all these other little projects that, these Green Lantern series, I think is still floating around for HBO Max.
Yeah.
Let's just get to that. I don't need any more cuts. I don't need anyone else's cuts.
See, ordinarily, or if you'd asked me this maybe a year ago, I might have been with you. I might have said Ayer cut. Listen, in Spanish, Ayer means yesterday. I would have said that's yesterday's news. Let's move on. But instead of saying that was Ayer, I saw Zack Snyder's Justice League last year, and I got proof for myself that there is some value in these alternate cuts. And honestly, listen, I'm a David Ayer guy. I loved his script for Training Day. I've loved a lot of the stuff that he has worked on. Did you ever see that one, End of Watch with Michael Pena and Jake Gyllenhaal?
No, I never.
Oh,
I never watched that.
dude, David Ayer brings the goods in a very big way. And I know that shitty movie that came out in August of 2016 did not represent what that guy could do.
Yeah, and I don't fault him or blame
Yeah,
him.
I know
for that either. I just
Yeah. But there's
a
a part of me that's like, I gotta see what Ayer wanted to do, what the original idea was. Because you know what? I was a doubter about whether or not Zack Snyder's Justice League would be any better than what we got. And then I saw it and I was blown away. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Maybe they should have just let him release this cut of the movie. So for me, like, I'm a little more open-minded here because especially now in this age of like the multiverse and the streaming platforms and everything is kind of on its own. Zack Snyder's Justice League coming out didn't derail all the other DC stuff that's coming. It just happened and it exists in a vacuum. So I think they could create a special like fan event ratings grab sort of alternate cut of Suicide Squad that I would totally be down for. So,
well, you know what's different about this too is that Justice League the theatrical came out and then we knew we weren't getting another Justice League after that. We didn't get anything beyond that. Whereas at this point, I've now gotten a new Suicide Squad that I love and I really liked a lot. So now it's even like weirder because it's like, well, we already got another one and it improves pretty much everything.
I mean, that is and that is a good point.
And Justice League the Snyder cut of Justice League did not have to go up against something like that.
Yeah.
And, because I feel like had another Justice League come out that was like leaps and bounds better, then I might have felt the same way. Whereas before I was like, no, I want the Snyder cut. I mean, I could have went either way. I was never like, oh my God, Snyder cut. But also I have to mention too, not everybody was horrible.
Oh,
but
here we go.
I don't know. I don't like to reward kind of like negative behavior. And there are just some people like, listen, the people that are asking nicely and just want to see it, like I'm with you, you know what I mean? But like, there's just a lot of people being shitty. Let's just say what it is. And like, then I feel like even when the Snyder Cut when it got announced, there was like part of me that like didn't feel good about it because I was like, people were just being shitty, and then like we just gave them what they want. And now like you're just encouraging them to continue being shitty. So.
Yeah,
and I kind of feel like this way too. It's kind of like right, a couple of rotten apples sour the bunch or whatever.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, listen, there's a part of me that would love to just like, if all that stuff is in the rear view mirror, then we don't have to hear from all these people who put the hashtag on every single post and who anything that Warner Media tweets out suddenly gets spammed with restore the this and release the that. Listen, I'm with you on that, but there's still just the film geek in me wants to see what the hell David Ayer had in mind there. Maybe Will Smith's endorsement will help get that over the finish line. So we'll see. All right, we're going to move on now, though. We're going to talk a little bit about Mission Impossible because there were some interesting headlines about that. I mean, one of the things I saw was that apparently the budget for Part 7 was almost $300 million. But I mean, listen, I can't really judge that. Maybe part of that is, remember, they filmed 7 and 8 back to back. So maybe that's for both movies.
They could be sharing resources and production staff and like had a second team shooting while they're shooting 7 principal photography. You could have a location team scouting and shooting B-roll for 8. You know what I mean? So that they could kind of.
It'd be funny too, depending on how they do the bookkeeping. We find out MI7 cost $290 and MI8 cost $5. $5. But like the one that the headline that grabbed my attention that I wanted to talk a little bit about is there's a quote being attributed to Variety where there's an insider who apparently claims that episodes that films 7 and 8 are going to basically act as like the conclusion of Ethan Hunt's arc, sort of a transition. Like we're going to go elsewhere after 8 where there won't be Tom Cruise as Ethan Hunt. And to me, that's intriguing because I remember a time back in like 2006 or 7, right around when Tom Cruise became a pariah in public. Remember when he jumped on Oprah's couch
Yeah.
and like freaked everyone out about how much he loved Katie Holmes, and everyone was
Yes.
like, "What the hell's going on with
That's
Tom
still a
Cruise?"
classic. Go back and
Yeah,
watch it. If you
yeah,
if
and
you
he like
haven't ever seen it, go watch it.
and he
Go on YouTube.
squeezes Oprah's hands, and it's really
It's
awkward and
bizarre.
uncomfortable. It's just, I'm just all in love. Anyway, so anyway, I remember around that time, Paramount was like messing around with the idea of we may have to ditch Tom Cruise as the star of Mission Impossible, because even MI3, the box office had suffered. J.J. Abrams had come in to direct it. He had Philip Seymour Hoffman. The film got really good reviews, but MI3 got very low box office, comparatively speaking. And they attributed to that to the fact that the Tom Cruise brand was sagging something awful. And at the time, they were talking about transitioning into a new leading man. And there was even talk at the time that that's why they brought Jeremy Renner's character in for 4. That like he would suddenly become the main guy after a time and whatever. And then obviously they changed their minds on that, and they realized that people have very short attention spans, and that Tom Cruise is re-welcomed back into everyone's life. And now he's been here again another, it's
He
been
was like,
15
I'll
years.
do crazy life-threatening stunts. And they were like, you know what?
Oh,
Tom,
cool.
come right back.
So
right back
yeah. So there was a time when they toyed with this, but now here we are, where that might be the reality, that after 8, maybe our boy Ethan Hunt finally gets to retire and go be with that wife, or go be with Rachel Ferguson's character, whatever her name is. I guess I'm just curious. This series now has been around since like 1995 or 96. We're going on way too long. No, we're going on 27 years of Mission Impossible movies. Do you think that this is a series that could survive without Tom Cruise? You think the brand, the franchise itself, is strong enough to mutate into something without Tom Cruise in it?
I think it is. First of all, it's one of my favorite film series ever.
Thank you.
Absolutely
Yeah,
love this
I agree, man. I don't think
excellent.
it's
It's one of the best action movies.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I feel like people don't talk about it enough. Maybe they do. I don't know, but like they should. They're awesome.
Yeah.
Especially the recent ones have been really tremendous. Anyway.
By the way, those are all movies where Abrams put the team together. He was in the producer role. He hired the writers and directors, and the rest was history. Keep going.
But yeah, it's like that series is so, the identity is Tom Cruise. What I feel like will probably happen, because I feel like you've already, I'll give you some examples, but the movie series will end. They're not going to jump into another set of movies. Hopefully, I really think if they did, it's not going to do well. What I could see them doing is they're going to end up doing like a Paramount Plus like series, and they'll do like a streaming version with a new person. Because like, listen, they've done it with Amazon has Reacher now, which I think is a Jack Reacher. Like not a continuation, but they brought Jack Reacher. Jim Ryan with John Krasinski. They did that, on Amazon.
You just blew me away. Because it would bring the whole thing full circle too, because that's how Mission Impossible started.
It's Paramount, I think, if I'm not mistaken, as well.
Yeah, it's Paramount. Yeah. But I'm saying like it would bring Mission Impossible full circle, because that started as a 60s TV series that my dad grew up watching, and then it became the film series in the 90s. But if somehow Mission Impossible ends up back on the small screen, I mean, that would be kind of poetic in a way, wouldn't it? I think you're right. That would be pretty.
I think that's what they'll do. They can do it for probably like a lower budget than doing the films. There's probably maybe less risk, and it's content for the streaming service that they're going to need. It's a content war now. We all know this. So I think that's the way it would go.
And what they could do, now I'm just spitballing, what they could do is like they could take an authority figure from these next 2 movies. I think I forget if Alec Baldwin's character even survived the fallout.
I don't think he's alive anymore.
I don't think he is, right? So whoever like the new boss is, lock that actor down, and he could be the connective tissue into a TV series. And then this time, because I remember, I'm old. I'm 38 now. It's crazy. But I remember in the 90s, people kvetching about the fact that, hey, Mission Impossible is supposed to be about a team of spies. It's an ensemble thing, and everyone has their specialty, and it was never about one guy. And now this is just a Tom Cruise action movie, blah, 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 And then as the films have worn on, they've kind of brought the team element more to the forefront. Yeah, I mean, I don't think MI2 really had any sort of team element, and
it wasn't until like 4.
Yeah.
I think 4 is when we've got Peg.
Yeah,
right?
so it would be interesting too, like again,
Yeah.
in terms of going full circle, right? It went from a show about a team of spies into a film franchise about one cool dude.
Yeah, one
Then
man
he
army.
finally has a team, and then it goes back to TV. So it's like, I kind
Yeah,
of like
I
that
feel
arc.
like that's likely the future of that franchise. If anything,
Yeah.
they're gonna do that, and like I don't know, it probably won't be good.
I mean, listen, I think these movies are going to be really good. I think Tom Cruise is doing some interesting
Oh,
stuff
I
to
have no
make
doubt that the movies
sure.
are gonna be good. They're
Yeah.
all good. They're awesome.
Because like there's rumors too that like 7 is going to end on a cliffhanger of some sort, and that Cruise, one of the reasons that they delayed 7 is that he wants to have 8 fully in the can before they lock 7, so that everything is just seamless and flawless between the two
Right.
movies. So I don't see how this could be bad. You have Christopher McQuarrie
Yeah,
coming
he's
back.
back for both, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think Mission Impossible is, yeah, if this is the end, I guess what a way to go. But see, now you've got me intrigued about an MI TV series. So now we'll see
Yeah.
what happens after 8 comes out,
We shall see.
But okay, so earlier this week, Nintendo held one of their direct thingies, and
Yeah,
you, the resident gaming guru here at
that's me.
the Fanboy Podcast, you did a reaction video which people can check out over on the YouTube, all 40
Yeah, and please
glorious
check it
minutes
out.
of it.
It's my first one.
Yeah, your first reaction video. And but for the listeners and the viewers of the Fanboy Podcast, are there any things that jumped out at you that were particularly noteworthy about this week's
Yes.
Nintendo Direct?
Yes, yes. So there was a 40-minute presentation. So it was a nice chunky one, basically giving us a look at, what's coming out, probably mostly focused on the first half of the year. Although there was one thing that was for like later in the fall that was like a big tease. So I don't want to go through every single thing. There's a lot of smaller titles, but a couple of quick highlights as I
Yeah.
look at my screen. So the big finale, which I was hoping was going to be Zelda or something, a little reveal on the sequel to Breath of the Wild. Unfortunately, didn't get that. But there really was something for everybody here. The end, they revealed Xenoblade Chronicles 3, which is a pretty beloved RPG series. It started on the Wii. It's like exclusive to Nintendo consoles by Monolith Studios, who also help with Breath of the Wild. They're like kind of work almost exclusively with Nintendo. I think they do some stuff on the side, but it's mostly with Nintendo. So yeah, big anime JRPG. Like these games take like 100 hours just to even roll credits. Never mind
Yikes.
side quests and
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah, it's a commitment. So I've actually played the first one, and there was like a weird like side one on the Wii U, that faded system, that I actually enjoyed a lot. But they're also for me a little overwhelming, a little too much going on. So that was the big one. We got to see a little more of Splatoon 3, which we already knew was coming. Not a series I'm really into. It's multiplayer focused, and multiplayer doesn't hold my attention.
Yeah.
Couple of cool things, maybe for the more casual. They are making like a sequel to Wii Sports called Switch Sports, and it's basically bringing back
Oh,
that whole
what?
motion play and stuff. And they added like a million sports, and they're gonna have free updates. That was like actually a cool little surprise. We also got a reveal of another Mario sports title. They've been revisiting. They brought golf back, tennis back. We're actually getting an updated Mario Strikers. So this game came out on, if I'm not mistaken, the GameCube, and then I think we have it on the Wii, and it's like basically like battle soccer. This is by a studio, Next Level Games, who actually went on to make the Luigi's Mansion series, which is like really popular. Nintendo just purchased them, if I'm not mistaken, I think January 2021. They don't really buy studios, but they were like, you guys have the Nintendo DNA, so we're going to invest, and they bought them. And I'm assuming, I don't know for sure, but I'm assuming they're making this one, and you could tell it's got a little more polish, a little more pizzazz to it than like the Mario tennis and golf titles that came out recently, which I enjoy, but they're a little sterile. So this is actually pretty exciting. I think people are really thrilled about that. No Man's Sky, which is a game that has been out for PlayStation and Xbox and PC for quite a while, is now getting a Switch release. That's actually just like a really cool, interesting title. Again, not really for me, but there's a lot of people who love that, and to be able to play it portable now is very awesome. My man, I shouted him out on the direct, but my man Isaac Wolf, at Emblem Maniac. I'm sure he is very happy they unveiled the new Fire Emblem game. It's a Fire Emblem Warriors, so it's what they call a Muso style game, which is basically you're like a one-man army just like knocking out and blowing up millions of people at once. But it's a sequel to Fire Emblem Three Houses, which just recently came out. So that's pretty cool. I'm sure he's thrilled. I will be seeing him on my Switch online playing the crap out of that when that releases, I think in June. And then yeah, a couple other quick ones. Portal and Portal 2, which if you've never played those games, they are
Yeah,
two
those
of
are
the best
old,
games.
right?
They are very old, but they are two of the best games ever made, and they still hold up. Both of them are coming to Switch, so now you can play those portable. That's really awesome. Also, some just great voice work in it. Very funny. J.K. Simmons actually voices
Oh,
characters
really?
in the sequel. And also Stephen Merchant, who works with Ricky Gervais.
I
He's a
know
big, tall,
Stephen
gangly.
Merchant. Come on
So
now.
they're, and then, yeah, they're kind of like the two like celebrity ones in the second one, but it's great. They voice like robots and they're hysterical. The writing is some of the best writing in games, like period. The end. And little callback, Jar Abrams has been attached to creating a Portal movie for a very long time,
Oh,
and
really?
supposedly it's not like, I mean, it's not in active development or anything, but
Yeah.
it's like not dead. There's still like, it's still on the table apparently. So
Hmm.
very cool, fun fact. And then I'll just cut right to my big thing was that they unveiled they are going to add 48 additional courses to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. And they're going
Wait,
to do
what?
so they're basically adding an entire another game to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe.
How did I miss that? That's huge.
This is huge. So that game, just so you know, Nintendo Switch just hit 100 million units worldwide. It is now outsold the Wii. It's actually 103, so it's actually outsold the Wii, which is incredible.
Wow.
But 40 million Switch owners have Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. So there's a 40% attach rate to the console. So that's like an incredible sales. It's also the best-selling racing game ever in the world, ever in the universe. So that actually happened like a year or two ago. The best-selling racing game ever.
Ever.
So
More
that's
than, wow.
more than any other racing game in the world.
Yeah, like, what were those ones that used to be huge back in the day? Gran Turismo and all
Well,
that?
no, the Gran Turismo and Forza are still huge, but yeah, it's even
Yeah.
blown these guys apart.
Wow.
And I'm not talking about the series, just
Yeah.
this title.
This one title.
So the big thing is they announced, which is weird because this game came out like 5 years ago. Actually, if you go longer, it came out on the Wii U first, then they ported
Yeah.
it to Switch.
Yeah.
So this is many years later.
And then
They're
are we
adding
going to have to pay for those extra courses, or is that
So,
just
yeah.
going to be an update?
48 courses they're going to release in waves. So between now and the end of 2023, they're going to release them in sets of 8. The whole
Talk about
DLC
milking an old game. Sorry, keep going.
Yeah, exactly. But I think it's $25 if you want to buy the DLC and you get all the waves. But if you have Nintendo Switch Online and
Yeah.
you've upgraded to the expansion pack, which is a very cute name, if you remember, N64 had
Yeah,
the
I
expansion
remember the
pack.
expansion pack.
So they've added this. It used to be $20 a year for Nintendo Switch Online. You got Super Nintendo and Nintendo games to play, kind of like on demand. The expansion pack gives you N64 games and Sega Genesis games. But now also included that is this DLC for free. So if you've upgraded to that $50 a year membership, you're going to get all this DLC for free. So I think
Wow.
a pretty cool value. And recently,
Well, actually,
earlier,
I already have.
yeah.
I did
Yeah,
that
so-
because I wanted the N64 and the Sega Genesis arcade.
So as long as you keep your subscription up, you are going to get all these courses as they release. So,
Wow.
And they're actually it's all retro courses that they're remastering from the series.
Oh, that's amazing.
No original courses. So they're bringing stuff back from the Super Nintendo, the mobile game that's out now, the GameCube, the
Wow.
Wii. Fan favorite Coconut Mall is returning, which is a big fan favorite
Nice.
in the Wii version.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that was for me. That was like the big showstopper. And hey,
Huh.
no Mario, no Zelda, but you know what that means? In June, when we hit E3 time, I'm sure we're getting a reveal of one or
We'd
both.
better.
And
We'd better.
I'm sure when we get our update for the second half of the year, that's what we're getting, hopefully. So, hey,
All right.
that's my update. Check out the reaction video. And, yeah, let me know what you think. Give me any feedback. It was my first one. And I would like to keep doing them as cool trailers and announcements come out, just so we have content on the site. So thank you.
Yeah, and I'm
guys
thinking of
in
doing
advance.
a reaction to your reaction video. I'm going to react to the way
You
you
should.
reacted. What
And
do you
then I'll
think?
react to the way you're reacting. You reacting.
I just the screen just keeps getting smaller and smaller. Like the video is just.
If
anyway.
you saw Inside by Bo Burnham on Netflix last year, when that came out, he actually does like a thing on that, and it's pretty
Yeah.
phenomenal.
Well, that's good. You know what's phenomenal? We have
What?
great listeners.
Oh, we
We
sure
have great
do.
listeners. We have great viewers.
I knew that.
Our return last week went very nicely over.
You
on
don't have to
YouTube.
tell me.
I know you. I don't have.
You
to
don't
tell you.
have to tell
But,
me anymore.
we have a dedicated base of phenomenal, passionate fanboys and some fangirls out there. And they've sent in some questions for us to go over. And honestly, this is going to be a regular part of the show because part of the point here is this is the Fanboy Podcast. And this is for all the fanboys and all the fangirls in the world to kind of get in on the conversation. So we're always going to be asking you for things. I'm actually going to be setting up a dedicated email just for questions and things of that resort. But for this time, we resorted to the old Twitter. And if you're not following the Fanboy Podcast over on the Twitter, you're going to want to follow at the Fanboy Show, okay? Because, well, cool things happen there. But, all right, so here are some of the questions that came in. Actually, before we do, Brett, did you have anything you wanted to say about the feedback we got last week?
I do. So, friend of the show, Jonathan Brady, he brought up on our YouTube video of our last week's podcast that I had actually conflated the story from the Telltale Batman series on video game consoles and Batman Earth 1, and I want to thank him for that, because I did play a smidge of the Telltale Batman series, and I'm not sure if actually that plot point about Thomas Wayne not being squeaky clean and maybe working for the mob, I'm not sure if I actually played up to that point where I discovered that, or maybe I just was like, let me look on Wikipedia and see what this plot's about, because I don't want to play this game anymore. I was still intrigued by the story, but I didn't like the way the game played. Yeah. And anyway, he was right. I did conflate it, and thank you for correcting me. So that's awesome.
And listen, Jonathan's the man. Jonathan was our ace Batman reporter at revengeofthefans.com back in the day. And I know that Jonathan can't freaking wait for this Pattinson movie. I remember he was talking about Robert Pattinson being the perfect Batman like a year before Reeves cast him. So, Jonathan, thanks for checking out the show. And Brett is very sorry. I flogged him for getting that wrong. I promise.
Yeah. Scars everywhere.
But okay, so we were just talking about video games and whatnot. And Tavo Borrego sent in a somewhat game-related question. I thought I'd bounce off you there, Brett, because there's this Halo miniseries coming.
That's right.
And I'm just curious, do we care? Do you care about the Halo miniseries that's coming to Amazon Prime?
So it's funny, I'm not a huge Halo fan. Recently I have been playing Halo Infinite, which actually I really loved. So that's kind of been the first game that really hooked me in that series. Yeah. I'm kind of up to date on the lore. I'm not super into it. A lot of people are very into it. There's books, there's comics, there's everything. So I don't know. I saw the recent trailer for the series. They did the slow minor key cover of a famous song. It's got a really slow, weird version of In the Air Tonight. And I wish everyone would stop doing that, but whatever. C'est la vie. Anyway, the trailer looked pretty cool. It's interesting. I mean, listen, I love sci-fi stuff. Halo does have a really cool story. Some spots looks really good. I love the way some of the aliens look, but it's a lot of CG. And you could see, I think they probably put a lot of budget into the CG, and the sets kind of didn't always look great. They look a little TV, if you know what I mean. So I'm just curious at how it's going to flow and how it's going to play. As we've seen with The Mandalorian, it's totally possible to have a guy that doesn't take his helmet off if they really are good with the body language, and it looks like they're basically doing that. It's The Mandalorian, but it's Halo. You know what I mean? So yeah. We'll see. I'm definitely going to check it out. I'm curious. Some of the stuff I saw looked cool, but I'm just wondering if it's really going to connect with people, and if you might just start noticing the budget just doesn't quite, really live up to what we need for that series, because that's, that there's a lot of expectations on something like that. That's a big, really popular series. So yeah, for me, I'm not really qualified to respond because Spielberg's a producer, by the way. I just wanted you to know that. They don't know. There you go. He's been attached to it for quite a while. When the Neil Blomkamp movie was going to happen, he was going to do a Halo movie and all that. But Spielberg's involved, so that's maybe a good thing. Yeah, I mean, listen, Spielberg attached to anything makes it better because he tends to put a high value on telling a coherent story that has something to it. That's not just a bunch of explosions. So that does make me a little more excited for it. But full disclosure, I've never played a Halo game. If I played, I think it was a sleepover at my cousin's house. Little split screen. Yeah, for 20 minutes. I'm just not qualified to answer. I'm sure as long as it's got an epic story and cool characters, I'm sure people are going to want to see it. But I don't have one iota of caring one way or the other about this Halo miniseries. So we're going to move on. My man Nick Farina
brought up. It's a rumor that's popped around for a while, and well, Henry Cavill is rumored to have been near the sets for both The Flash and Black Adam during the period where those films were being filmed. And he, of course, was looking all Superman-ish the way he does, because he's just always looks like he's chiseled out of rock. And some folks think that this is an indication that he's going to be in one or both of those films or making some sort of cameo. And that this, Nick thinks that this isn't getting enough attention. And I mean, look, Nick, do I think it's possible? I think anything's possible at this point, especially with what they're doing with the Flash, where there's going to be multiple Batman, and we're going to be playing with the idea of the multiverse, and we're probably going to see him kind of phase in and out of different worlds within the multiverse. I think we're going to see all kinds of stuff, is my point. And would it shock me if Henry has a moment in the Flash that isn't just on the TV screen? Yeah, it wouldn't shock me. And I still think if there's any chance he's going to show up, it's going to be in something like Black Adam or Shazam. But right now, it's all just speculation, because listen, him looking Superman-ish is something that Nick pointed out. He always looks like that. He's all, he's jacked for The Witcher. He's jacked for everything. He's always in Superman shape, and a lot of things film in the places where these movies are filming. Listen, I'm not trying to poo-poo the idea. Yeah. I want it to be true, but right now, we'll just have to see. But we have to keep our expectations in check, because even if Henry shows up in these movies and has cool Superman-ish moments, we know that they're not planning on giving him any solo movies right now. So it's kind of like a bittersweet thing. We might see him and he'll look great and he'll do something cool, and we'll hear a few bars of Hans Zimmer and we'll all be wee. But we have to understand that for all intents and purposes, the studio has not given us a Man of Steel 2. So we have to hedge. We have to, keep our expectations in check. We might get some great fan servicey moments, and that's probably just going to be it. But
I hope it's the ultimate troll, and he just shows up in the multiverse as Geralt of Rivia. That's the only shot you got of, like, the Flash is running and you just see Geralt in there and they look at each other, and that's it. And then everyone just melts. The whole fan base melts.
Either that or he is, but he just plays this actor named Henry Cavill.
Or he shows up as Sherlock Holmes.
The Flash asks him a bunch of questions and he has no idea what he's talking about. Anyway.
I hope the Flash is watching Mission Impossible 6 and you just see Henry Cavill reload his arms.
Yeah, the rumor said that they show Superman on a TV. It's just the Flash watching Mission Impossible Fallout. That's all that cameo is. So listen, man, I want it to happen. It is definitely intriguing that he was near those film sets at around the time they were filming. And they're both movies that could very well use a quick sort of Superman presence in them. For Black Adam, I would say maybe as a post-credit sequence setting up where they go next. Because, like we discussed last week, Dwayne Johnson has made no bones about it. He wants Black Adam and Superman to fight real bad, and they've worked backwards. They reverse engineered his entire Black Adam experience to make this fight happen. So I think he might show up in an end sequence there, and he might have one cool, cute little moment in The Flash. But, it's that bittersweet thing of this is all we get now from Henry Superman. So listen, we'll see what happens. But thanks for sending in your question there, Nick.
Thank you, Nick.
Now, we got another Superman question. And this is from my friend Stephen Marshall, a member of the Krypton World Order, the KWO, if you will. He and I once were part of. And Stephen Marshall had some questions, and he's a Brit, and in the past when he's sent in his questions, I will attempt to do his accent. And it's funny, when I used to record with him like almost every week, I had his dialect fresh in my ear and I could do it. Now it's been like a long time, so I'm going to give this a shot. I'm going to read Steven's thing in his accent. or something thereabouts. Um, of all the cancelled Superman projects over the years, i.e., Superman Lives, Superman Flyby, Wolfgang Petersen's Batman versus Superman, Superman,
Superman.
JL Mortal, etc. Which one do you feel had the most potential, and which one would you have liked to be able to watch the most? So Brett, you know that there's been some canceled Superman projects. You know that Tim Burton.
Have there?
Yes, Tim Burton was going to make Superman Lives with Nicolas Cage. We had Jar Jar Abrams. He must be the sponsor of the show. Episode 136, brought to you by J.J. Abrams. But yeah, he had Superman Flyby happening for some time. And then there was Wolfgang Petersen's Batman versus Superman, which again, that's the movie that eventually gave us Batman Begins and Superman Returns in the early zeros.
That's the movie that was teased in I Am Legend on the
Yes, we saw the teaser image for that. Yep. And then there was George Miller's J.L. Mortal, which was set to come out during Christopher Nolan's trilogy, but not actually have the Christian Bale Batman, but rather, who was it going to be? There was DJ Catrona as Superman. Oh, and Army Hammer.
Yeah, Cannibal Hammer.
So there have been a number of projects that, like, listen, they were building sets. They were like getting very close to happening and then just dropped off the face of the earth. Were there any of those that you had any particular interest in? I'm just curious, over the years, as you've heard of these aborted projects.
Yeah, the JL Mortal one always sounded like a little too bonkers for me, and I'm again, I always say I'm not like a stickler that things have to stick to.
What, Jay Baruchel as Max Lord doesn't?
I'm not even talking about like the casting, like just like the story that he was going for just seemed bonkers. I don't know.
Yeah.
For me, yeah, I probably Superman Lives, maybe. Superman Lives just because like it's Tim Burton, so I know it was gonna be like some just weird, crazy stuff, and obviously I love the Michael Keaton Batman and Batman Returns from him too. So like, yeah, that's definitely such again another a curio I would love to have seen. And then Superman Flyby is something I know they kind of changed some stuff there with how Superman, I guess, I don't know, not how he's depicted, but some of his background and history. But I generally, I know people might hate me for this, but I generally like a lot of J.J. Abrams films. Like they're usually a good time. I've never like walked out of one and been like, oh, that was trash. You know, there's criticisms to levy at them, of course, but for the most part, I really enjoy them. They're fun. They're usually paced pretty well. So that would have been something special. And you know, whatever. He's still working on one now, so we're technically kind of going to get some kind of J.J. Abrams. Superman.
Yeah. For me, it's because it's a two-part question, so I'm going to answer both. Steven, in terms of which one has my most attention, the one that I would most want to see, I would really want to see Tim Burton's Superman Lives, just like Brett said. You know, to me, the curiosity surrounding that, seeing Nicolas Cage as Superman with the long hair and that unique, like, light suit that they were building for him, and you know, I would have been very, very morbidly curious to see what that movie turned out to be, what Burton's take on the Man of Steel would be. But I don't think it would have been a hit. I really don't. When they were developing that between 94 and 96, I think the world wouldn't have been ready for a weird, long-haired Nicolas Cage Superman movie. You know, I feel like it would have flopped. It would not have worked. I just
like if you pitch that movie to me and to fans, then we probably would have been like, no.
Yeah,
but now,
exactly.
At this, I'm 35, and I've seen pictures of it and heard Kevin Smith talk about it, and I'm like, this thing's so freaking weird.
Yeah,
I need to see it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so, in terms of one that I think might have had the best chance at being a success, I actually think the Abrams. He's got to send us the check. JJ, we are putting you over big time.
He's the king of mainstream, whether you hate that or like that. But he knows how to make a mainstream film. He does.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's some liberties, there's some things that he had in mind for Flyby that I wouldn't have done. But realistically speaking, when they were developing that movie between 2003 and 2005 or so, there hadn't been a Superman movie in nearly 20 years. And at that point, Abrams had sort of developed a touch with, he seemed to know how to draw a big audience. And even though he took some liberties with Krypton still being around and Lex Luthor being an alien, and even though he took some interesting creative departures, I have a feeling it might have been a big commercial success because he does seem to kind of get what the special sauce on these IPs. He brought Star Wars back to a $2 billion box office after everyone hated the prequels for 15 years. Like he's got a way to like inject new life into stuff that even may have seemed dead. So I feel like Flyby might have actually really worked, but it's not the one that would have been on the top of my list. The top of my list is Superman Lives.
Can you imagine the lens flares that we missed out on?
Oh, the
lens flares.
Yes. And the final question before we get into our wrap up everything with our thoughts on Peacemaker. The final question that came in was about fan casts. I want to give him proper Mr. Hero Cosplay on the Twitter said, how about whether or not fan casts are a good thing for studios to actually pay attention to? So let's talk about that a little bit, because we do live in the age of fandom wanting to get involved in the process, and they're campaigning for actors and campaigning for directors, and the fans really feel a sense of ownership when it comes to IPs and characters and stuff these days. And sometimes people, these fan casts take over and you start hearing about names and short lists start popping up. But a lot of it is just people who fans would think would be cool to play a certain character. And sometimes directors pay attention to that stuff, and then sometimes they go the total opposite way. And so I'll ask you first, Brett, in this age of the fans always wanting to have their voice heard, do you think studios should give a shit about fan casts?
Right, I mean, sometimes it could bring attention to someone the studios would have totally overlooked. So, I mean, it could be a cool thing. But overall, I'm not a huge fan of it. I having, and I think you kind of share the same experience as me. Like, we've both, we're not like professional actors. Like, I guess I haven't been into like a huge major film, but, we've both acted before, we've directed before, we've been in productions. And there is something, to having your vision and going out and finding that person that has, what you need versus just like bringing someone in because everyone else said. And for the most part too, like I feel like when you see a lot of fan casting, it's usually people just picking somebody that looks like the way a character's drawn in the comics, or that like they're not thinking like very much deeper about it. Like it's the reason why, like, right, everyone had a big uproar over Heath Ledger as the Joker. I mean, but look how that worked out. And even Pattinson, listen, we haven't seen him yet. Maybe he's absolute dog shit, okay? It's 3 hours of the worst Batman I've ever seen. But, I mean, you have someone like that, like, he wasn't really going to get fan cast. But Reeves said, I saw this movie, I saw a good time, and this kid's got some darkness, and I think he can do what I want. And, hey, everything I've seen so far is telling me that. So, yeah, I think... there's a whole creative process behind it. There's so much. There's so much involved. Not even just the director, like everything. So to take in consideration. So a fan cast like can seem like a good idea, but it's usually, in my opinion, they're usually pretty shallow.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head that a lot of times fans demonstrate a lack of imagination. Really what they're going for is, oh, this person looks just like the comic book character, so we should cast them. It needs to be something very obvious. And someone like a Heath Ledger for Joker is not typical at all. Someone like a Robert Pattinson for Batman is not typical at all.
Sure.
And yet, it's just, I feel like fan casts should kind of be completely ignored. It should be like back in the day when like Wizard magazine would do fan casts and it was just geeks going, oh, that would be cool. But I don't think anyone in charge of making any of these movies or series should be paying attention to what fans want. Because on top of that, fans, they half the time they can't agree on what they want. Fans are always interfighting about something, and we're gonna be fighting about this. This is the best idea ever. Oh no, this is the worst idea ever.
Mm-hmm.
And there's gonna be all kinds of passions any way you go. So I'd rather just let the creator, let the artist, let the director call the shots on that. Because I remember everyone that when everyone was screaming about Heath Ledger, all the alternatives they were saying were so like cliche. People were saying, "Oh, it should be Willem Dafoe." Why? Because he looks exactly like
when he
Joker.
smiles, his face is big.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Like they name these people who if you put it looks like I get it, but really that's it. We don't care about how this where their performance fits in the story and their chemistry with the main character. It's above everyone's pay grade to be making these decisions. So I think fan casts should just basically be roundly ignored for the most part. That's just kind of my take on that. And but now let's share our take on this week's Peacemaker. So folks, we're about to go into spoilerific reactions to the 7th episode of Peacemaker, which came out.
And I think penultimate episode.
Is it really? Is it only 8?
I think there's only one more. I could be wrong, but I think
that bums me. Don't tell me that. I love this damn show. What am I going to do now?
I know.
And Superman and Lois is on a hiatus, so we will not be sharing any thoughts on Superman and Lois this week. But let's go full bore into Peacemaker. So I'll let you start. What did real quick? Did episode 7 live up? Did it continue the winning streak for you, or did it kind of falter? How did you feel like coming out of Peacemaker?
No, I love this episode. I mean, the show has just shown an incredible ability to really have a lot of heart and these emotional and character moments. And look at Cena, man, shedding tears and everything like that. And this week the big thing was they kind of finally showed you the full scope of what happened with his brother.
Yes,
because they kept kind of doing it but then cutting away, and they finally really showed it out now. And it's struck such an incredible balance of comedy, like I said, character development, heart, and I really do I fall in love with all these characters. I love all of them. They're really cool. They've also done a great job, I think, at moving the ensemble around and pairing different groups of them together and seeing how they react and interact. And hey, this week, listen, we lost actually a really cool character this week.
Yeah.
We also lost big piece of shit also this week too. So there was I mean we're doing spoilers, right? So Peacemaker finally got to throw down with his father and ended it.
I did not see that coming, by the way. I didn't
expect it now. It was actually, honestly, it was really emotional.
Dude, I thought Robert Patrick was going to be on the show now, just for the long haul. And I was happy for him. I love Robert Patrick ever since Terminator 2. I'm like, good, give him a great meaty role, but he's gone.
Yeah. Because they had to get rid of him, I think, to get some character growth out of Peacemaker, and that sets us up for the big finale where we have to take down these butterflies. And I guess we should. I mean, you want to give your thoughts before we talk about the post-credit scene?
Yes. So I've got a bunch of little things. I was just writing notes while watching the show that I kind of want to just bounce off you, because there were some interesting revelations about the character. Aside from finding out about the death of his brother and how that actually went down, and that terrible scene, by the way, his origin story basically is just horrendous. Awful. And the way that the father reacts to him and the names he calls him and the way he reacts, it's just a total gut punch. But when Robert Patrick was confronting him, when the dad was confronting him at one point, and he's listing all the things that suck about his son and the reasons he knew that his son doesn't basically deserve to live anymore. He mentioned devil music and he shaved his body like a woman. Right. But then he said something about laying with whores and with men. And I'm like, that's an interesting choice. I doubt that the Peacemaker from the 60s and 70s comics had that as part of their story. Right. So it just made me wonder, I'm like, is Gunn going to explore that further? Is that another thing about this guy's psyche, that maybe he's got some other closeted stuff that he's never quite dealt with? Or was it just a one-off line that never comes back to it. But either way,
I didn't know
an
if it was a
interesting
joke.
thing.
Yeah, if it was a joke because of like he had been in prison.
But I mean,
Like,
but everything he said in he was
But
saying it
yeah.
basically in the death threat, running down all the different things he did wrong,
Yeah.
and you laid with men. Like, it didn't seem like it was done for a gag. So I'm like,
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. I thought for a second maybe it was that, but no, I think like you said, it was a real revelation.
So that just got me wondering. Yeah, like are they going to actually go down that path in like season 2? Imagine, like, I'm just saying that would be pretty ballsy to take, the Peacemaker. Like, I mean, you wouldn't see it coming if suddenly they were going to explore some of that sort of facets some more.
Well, maybe he's just like sexually fluid. It doesn't necessarily mean that he like identifies as a certain.
Yeah, I know. It just
but
it's
it's all interesting. It gives you a layer to this guy, and like
it's just another one of the layer of what's going on inside, and why does he act the way that he does, and all that. It's just
how he might use that in a way too. Like
yeah.
Stuff. It's very interesting.
Dude, I started like cheering when I started seeing Eagly beating attacking KKK members. There's just something about watching an American Eagle try to destroy the KKK that just feels right. It feels like justice. And in that scene, by the way, Stephen Agee, the
Economo.
What do they call him? Diebeard.
It's Economo is his real name. Yeah.
He keeps on having the best hero moments in the show. In the gorilla scene, he got the chainsaw kill on the gorilla, right?
And he came out with the SMG in this
one. And then in this one, he's got
the
SMG and he's just mowing down KKK hoods. So he's like low key the hero of the story, you know? And then I thought Robert Patrick, like, the acting was unbelievable because when Peacemaker actually shoots him dead center of the forehead, you look at Robert Patrick's eyes and you see him acknowledge for a second, and then he's gone.
Right.
And I love that in those moments, he was telling him that, he was telling Peacemaker that you don't have the balls and you're not man enough and you won't do it. And then he has that moment of, I was wrong. And then he's
so good.
But it was just like, it was amazing. Because I actually rewound a couple of times and the look in his eyes is unbelievable. Top tier acting, just phenomenal. And to me, I thought there was something so powerful about that because the dad is like the monkey on his back. The dad is the thing that has steered him wrong. The dad is the thing that like is his cross to bear, so to speak. And I feel like a lot of us have our cross to bear, our monkey on our back, our thing that we wish we could confront or defeat in ourselves. But most of us just live with that thing our whole lives or find ways to mitigate it. He killed the monkey on his back. And I found that powerful. I'm like, this is going to set him up on an interesting trajectory if you go into season 2 and all that sort of stuff. Because, like, what must it feel like to have this dark cloud hanging over you and then you just eliminated it for good? I just found that, like, just quietly really interesting. And I'm curious, like, how that's going to affect him as he tries to essentially, like, remake himself and become a better person, become a person he's proud of being.
Right.
And I'm sure many of us would love to metaphorically kill that thing that's on our back, that's holding us, stopping us from being who we want to be.
Sure.
So that felt just unbelievably powerful to me.
It's cathartic.
And speaking of like powerful and cathartic, like I cried when Eagly hugged him. Did you cry?
I teared up a little bit.
I couldn't deal when
Eagly
wrapped his arms around him. It was just beautiful, especially, if you think about, like, this is a guy who's done a lot of no good, and Eagly probably knows it, but Eagly forgives him, and Eagly knows that there's someone good in there. You know what I mean? Like, there was something about it that was so, like, symbolic. And
also with Adeoye watching. Through the window, and then I also love that he got the phone and he was like, got the selfies. He took like a million. You kept hearing it.
But you saw it hit her like a ton of bricks. That like, this is the guy I did that to. I planted a journal and tried to ruin this guy's life, and he thinks being hugged by an eagle is a miracle, and he's sobbing about it. Like, this is,
Right.
this is not a bad guy. Like, you could tell, like, it ate her up.
Yeah, he was
to
just
realize,
misled, yeah.
Yeah. So that was another great moment. Although if I could bring up anything that I'm over, I want to know what the villain is, because I'm tired of just hearing about the butterflies. Because to me, like, that doesn't sound threatening at all, and it almost sounds like, it makes the sentences that include the butterflies sound a little silly when they're like, we're all very serious and we've got guns and we got to run. Listen, we got to go and deal with the butterflies. I'm like, So
Yeah,
I want to finally, what are their real names and what is the main villain? Because I'm just overhearing about, the butterflies, but
I understand what you're saying about the name, but I mean, like, we've seen they're pretty vicious. Like, I don't think actually we talked in great detail like last week.
Yeah.
That gruesome scene in the police station on episode 6,
wow,
where like everyone's faces were just like bleeding out and ripping apart. Because I was like, no, butterflies are pretty scary.
They are. It's just that name sound. Every time they refer to them as that, I'm like, all right. Let's come up with some, like the Chitauri. Like, let's give them some name that sounds kind of like, ooh, alien and scary.
Yeah.
Because the butterflies, I'm like, all right, I get it. But going back to like Eagly and that, you brought up Cena really bringing it with the acting. I mean, at some point I wrote a note today that just said Cena is really fucking good.
Yeah, he's going for
really
it.
Really is. It's unbelievable to watch. He's bringing so much of himself to the role. He's being vulnerable and emotional and showing all these layers to this bravado character. I mean, honestly, I think Hollywood and James Gunn in particular is learning what the best wrestlers have in spades. Because remember, he worked with Dave Bautista in the Guardians movies. Now he's working with Cena. And other directors have already learned this with Dwayne Johnson. But the guys who are really good at the guys who can be the top star in a wrestling company, who can captivate 30,000 people in an arena just with their eyebrow, those guys have a certain, like, there's an X factor. The best ones do. Not every wrestler can be an actor. But the guys who get it, the guys who hone their craft for those years and they tour the world and they learn how to use every facet of their face and their body to project the story, because they understand that the body language really matters, where you put your head really matters. Like, they understand, like, they learn how to manipulate a huge audience just using their physical body.
Well, they're like the theater actors that then like move into film.
Yeah,
and it's theater.
So it's just funny to think,
so.
like, I'm surprised that there aren't more crossovers, or maybe there will be now, like, when people are starting to really get it. Like, wait a minute, Dwayne Johnson, John Cena, Dave Bautista, these guys all came from that world, and they're phenomenal. And whatever. To me, as a wrestling fan, it makes me excited to be like, now the whole world is starting to see how talented these guys can be. It's not just about throwing fake punches and doing, choreographed stunts. Like, it takes real charisma. It takes real chops to have an entire audience eating out of the palm of your hand, cheering for you, booing you, crying for you, all that stuff. And then when they appear on a movie set, the director probably has the easiest job in the world with them, because they've already got so much. You probably just have to scale them down a little bit. You don't have to try to get a lot out of them, because they're already, they're ready to turn it on like that.
Yeah, they know how to play.
So yeah, Cena, I'm so proud of the work he's doing. He's so good. I can't wait to see where he goes from here, because I feel like up until this, his acting career has been a little hit or miss. He's had some moments. He had a small part in that Bumblebee movie you didn't see. Mm-hmm. He had a part in that Amy Schumer comedy that kind of started his acting career. But he's had these little standalone bits here and there. But now that Peacemaker is the #1 streaming show in the world, and everyone's getting to see what this guy can do, I'm just fascinated by where he goes from here. What kinds of roles does he take, and what kind of doors open for him? Because I don't know. I think the sky's the limit with Cena. I don't know. I'm so freaking happy
He's
with
a
how
great
that's
comic
going.
actor, and he's really shown that he can do the heavy stuff now too. And it's it's
Yeah.
impressive. He's one to keep watching, obviously, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And just a couple final things. I love that they're making like a catchphrase out of the idea that there's no wrong time to rock. I'm like, I just love that. Every character, like Vigilante and Diebeard, said it in this last episode, and I believe because that came from Peacemaker first, and I just love that. I want a shirt that says "There's no wrong time to rock."
Yeah. Very good.
And when they finally showed, the cow, the thing that is creating all of the food, like, first of all, it looks incredible. Like, it looks creepy and weird, but like the effects, I just wrote down, this is the entire budget for the show. Because if you look through 6 episodes, it's been almost entirely practical. It's a pretty low budget show, except for like the gorilla and Eagly. But like, I swear that cow thing, that shot, I'm like, this is the whole budget. This is like, this is what Gunn said. Like, listen, give me $100 million, but I'm only going to need like 20 of it for most of the show.
Yeah. And I need 80
the rest
for the
is just for,
last 2 episodes.
So you think this is the second to last?
I'm almost, I mean, you know what? Hey, imagine there was this thing where you could find out anything you ever wanted to know.
I mean, listen, if you could find out anything you'd want to know, you would have to turn to something called the internet. So as Brett puts that into his Google machine, I want to thank you all, because we're going to be wrapping this up ever so shortly. We're not going to do an hour and 45 minutes every time. Yeah, we were actually going to try to get this to 1 hour, but here we go. What is it, Brett? What's the word?
There's one more episode, guys. Next week is the season finale. It's an 8-episode series. Wait, hey, listen.
See, that kills me.
This is the thing I always preach, right? 8 episodes, no filler. Every episode's a banger.
That is true.
Just do it. It's the right thing to do for me. Just for me. Do it for me. Maybe for some other people, but do it for me.
All right. And you know what else is the right thing to do? To follow the two of us over on the Twitter so that we can end this podcast. So Brett can be found over on the Twitter at
Super BrettCon.
And I can be found over on the Twitter at Superman on Film. And you could follow the show itself at The Fanboy Show. But I think it is officially time to bring this one in. So thanks for joining us. And on behalf of both Brett and I, life is chaos. Be kind.
Thanks for the dance.
Thank you, everyone.